Ben Pittman here. Training lesson number 3, training session number 4, the presentation strategy. Now here's where we're going to talk about some things that you're going to have to kind of work on a little bit, but I'm just going to give you a broad overview of what you're looking to do. First of all, in your presentation strategy, you're going to want to kind of figure out what color this person is. And we talk about colors in another lesson called Rainbows and Chameleons. And when you learn a little bit more about colors, you're going to want to precisely think about that whenever you're sitting down to talk to somebody, because you'll be able to tell what color they are, and then you can gear your presentation to that person's personality. It doesn't make a lot of difference in some cases, but in some cases makes a big difference as to how you present something. Second of all, you're going to probably have to come in and tell them a little bit about you, but not too long. You don't want to make this too long. You've already written out your statement about yourself. You've answered these questions, hopefully. You've written out a little 2 or 3 minute statement that says, this is where I was, this is what I saw, this is what I did about it, this is what happened, you can do it too, and we'll show you how. Those 5 questions, if you'll write that up and kind of give the person that you're doing the business presentation for, now this is a one-on-one, by the way, or even in a public presentation, it works the same way. But you give them some ideas, but then what you're going to want to try to do is you're going to try to play detective. And you're going to try to find out, and I call it test the water. This is something, this document's actually 30 years old. It's the same as where one of my students a long time ago wrote down what we talked about. It's just as valid today as it was then, because it goes after the same concept of digging in and trying to remember that little saying that you'll learn later called, if you can see the world through Susie's eyes, you can sell Susie what Susie buys. Well, what you're going to try to do now is you're going to try to uncover the needs and wants of your prospect as you're doing the business presentation. That's all about business presentation strategy. Now, in the Regional Manager and 30-Day Program, what you want to really do is to give your trainer or your coach or your upline, your regional manager, as much information about this person as you possibly can. When you're back up there in the name list, remember we talked about whether the person is married or not, whether they have children. So all that information kind of is already in place. So now you start working on this test the waters. And so your strategy is, if you're doing a one-on-one in particular, and in a group presentation, the same dynamic happens as well. But you've got to start relating yourself to this person. And you've got to start probing them, and actually you're going into the decision-making process very early. Some people call it a close. Well, if you're going to call it a close, you're going to start closing right on the very first minute you open your mouth. In order to test the water, one of the things you got to understand is, what is this person's expectations about earning income? If you said, hey, how would you like to earn $100,000 a year? Some people say, well, that's just totally impossible for me. I can't even imagine that kind of money. So ask the question, how much money would you like to earn extra next year? And if they say, sometimes they'll say $1,000 a month. There's actually about 3 major answers that'll give you the clue. Most people will say, oh, I'd like to earn an extra $1,000 a month. Then a lot of people will say, well, you know, if I could make about $30,000 or $40,000 a month next year, that's a person that's kind of thinking about changing their career. So that gives you a little tip off there too. And then you'll have a few people who are either A, blowing smoke, or B, dead serious about wanting to make $100,000 plus next year. So that's the kind of a thing you're looking for as well. So you're going to just go ahead and ask that question and make note of it in your mind as to what the person says. Okay, now, as you're forming this person up, you're going to start saying, okay, well, if I could show you how to make whatever answer they gave you, if I could show you how to make an extra $1,000 next year, or $500 a month, or whatever it is they said, $1,000 a month, then how much time or how many hours per week would you be willing to invest to learn how to earn that money? Now, they're going to give you an answer. Most of the time, they'll give you an answer of either 4 or 5 hours a week. They'll give you an answer 10 to 20 hours. They'll say as much time as necessary. Well, if they say as much time as necessary, that's either A, once again, blowing smoke, or B, they're dead serious about really making some income here. Okay, then the third question, see what we're going for is we've got the desire taken care of, how much money they want to make. Now we're talking about how much time are you willing to spend. Then we're going to find out what kind of investment we got into. All right, let's suppose that you're asking the person a question. All right, let's suppose I could show you how to make $2,500 extra next year per month, or something like that. How much money would you be willing to invest to learn how to earn something like that? Well, see, now we're sort of attacking the money part. This is where we're going to delve in here and play detective and find out. If you start asking these questions right up front, and if you do it with a smiling face and all this sort of stuff, you can weave this into the conversation as you go along. You can answer their questions. You're asking about, who their family is and all these different things. You're developing a relationship. But during this process, say, well, it's going to cost a little bit of money. How much money would you be willing to invest? They'll tell you maybe $1,000 a month. $1,000 to get started, or $500. You may give them a suggestion. Would it be worth $500 of something to get started? So you start to recognize and you start to break open these things. That yes, it's going to cost money, but it's not going to cost a whole lot of money. And you always want to kind of aim a little bit higher. You want to always, in Fortune, for instance, it only costs $299 to get in. But after you add some of the things on, just go ahead and say, hey, it's $500 or less. So now you've started to get into at least opening some doors so that you know as you go along what kind of presentation you're going to make. Now, there are lots of different kinds of presentations. But the main idea here is to get to the 3 objections that they'll always have. We're going to go over the objections in just a little while, so we won't go into that. But for right now, let's talk about the presentation, different types of presentations. First of all, you can simply use a DVD and just hit play and let them watch the DVD. Let them watch Todd Rowland or Joel McNinch or any of the other great people we have on DVD now. You can also do a PowerPoint with a laptop. Take a laptop with you and hit play and let them watch the PowerPoint and explain it to them with a PowerPoint. You can also have them on the phone doing the same thing. This Vision magazine is something that's great for explaining. You can explain the business in there and then leave it with them. The other part is, what does this say? Online video. Oh, some of the just the plain old online videos we already talked about. You can take the phone and the online video and combine those two together and actually get somebody on the phone and have the PowerPoint on their machine and the PowerPoint on your machine, and you just talk them right through it. That's a great way to present the business to somebody. Hotel meetings. Most of the time, in a lot of areas, they have hotel meetings, and they happen generally once a week or a couple times a month or something like that. And that's a good place to take the person to for the second showing. One of the things you got to understand about the presentation strategy is the person, generally speaking, does not sign up or does not come into the business the first time around. And there are several reasons for that. But you've got to recognize that it's probably a 1.5 to 2 times presentation. So the best way to do it is to personally sit down and paint the dream with the person, one-on-one, preferably 2-on-1, especially in this first 30 days with your regional manager. And then after you've presented the business one-on-one and they say, well, actually, I don't even tell them that there's a public presentation, because until I presented it one-on-one, and then I'll say, by the way, we're having a meeting Thursday night. Can we come by and pick you up and come over and take a look and meet some of my fellow associates? That's the way you really want to do this. Now, if you get forced into taking somebody to a public presentation the first time, then go ahead and go for it. But it's always better if you can do the presentation one-on-one or 2-on-1, preferably the first time. And the more you get into this, the more you'll understand. But the big key here is to follow your leader. Whatever your regional manager is doing, remember, he or she have promoted themselves a regional manager. So if they're coaching you and teaching you, and after you've been ask your training director this same question, after you've gone through the training, then you're ready to go. And the main thing is go. Make massive action happen here. If it's a DVD or a hotel meeting or a one-on-one or a 2-on-1 or whatever, keep it turning. That's the big idea. And see what works best and learn from every experience. Fail forward, as John Maxwell says. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the next session.